So we've got these raw experiences, like it's cold outside, or that warmth that we feel inside when we are given a present. And our response to these raw experiences is mind-made. So we've got this inner world that responds to those external conditions. The inner world of thoughts, mental states, views. And these inner states inevitably seek expression through action, speech, and that affects the external world. So we might, as a result of getting a present, we might decide to give a present to the same person. So there's this cycle, if you like. So the world affects us, and then on the basis of that, we affect the world. So there's this co-arising, if you like, of our inner world and the outer world. They are the inner and the outer are mutually interdependent. This might seem obvious, but it is fundamental. Ultimately, Buddhism would say there's no distinction between the inner and the outer. If I may read you a poem from Ryokan, the Japanese poet from the 19th century, 18th, 19th century. The rain has stopped, the clouds have drifted away, and the weather is clear again. If your heart is pure, then all things in your world are pure. So peace in the heart and peace in the world co-arise. A conflicted heart and a conflicted world co-arise. Now, the Buddha has something to say about how conflict arises. What is the root of conflict, particularly inner conflict, according to the Buddha? There is this sutta called the Madhupindika Sutta, otherwise known as the honey balls sutta, described as such because the Buddha said, Buddha's right-hand man, Ananda, said, after hearing it, Lord, it's as if a man overcome with hunger, weakness, and thirst were to come across a ball of honey. Wherever he were to taste it, he would experience a sweet, delectable flavor. He was praising this particular teaching. And what this teaching really focuses on is a teaching that arises in a lot of the early Buddhist scriptures teachings, the early suttas, which are called the Nirvana chain is the teaching. And it's about a chain of conditions. So each link in the chain of conditions arises on independence upon the previous link. So I've written down the particular set of the Nirvana chain links that are there in the Madhupindika Sutta. There are different versions of this link. I don't know how to see this. I suppose there's no position where everybody will see it. I'll try and not make it too dependent. Okay. Where we start in this chain of causality is our conditionality are the senses. So the Buddha says we have senses. I put the Pali words for these. If you like, it's a Buddhist cognitive psychology we're looking at here. What happens when we sense? When we have a direct experience, we see, we hear, we taste, we touch. These are called the salayatanas, the senses. Well, our senses come into contact with an object, we see it, we hear it, we taste it. That gives rise to what's called a feeling tone, or you might know them as Vedana is the Pali term. The feeling tone is that experience of contact. So I sense something, I see something. Is it pleasant or is it unpleasant or is it neutral? That's what we mean by feeling tone or Vedana. That leads to a perception of this object. We get information from feeling tone as to whether the object is good for us, is supportive of our well-being or not. So it all feeds into our perception of a snake on the ground. Oh, that's probably an unpleasant Vedana, and we recognize snake. So that's perception, sanya. And that what immediately follows from sanya is thinking, vitanka. We say, okay, there's a snake on the ground. What do I do now? Do I run? Do I jump over it? I'm thinking of an incident in Spain when I was running in the wilds. And then what happens with thinking? So all of this I put in blue, as you can see here. It's all kind of just what happens when we have a sense experience and our mind kicks in. We have the feeling tone, we have the perception, and then we start thinking about it. But then the Buddha describes in this sutta, the Madhupindika Sutta, how we slip into this proliferation, papancha. And proliferation is not a great translation of this word. Maybe spreading out is another translation. What spreading out is, what proliferation is, the word here you probably can't see is papancha in orange, not the most obvious color, I realize. So papancha, spreading out, proliferation, is when our thinking gets mixed up with what are described as underlying tendencies, these unwholesome habits of mind that are basically reactive. For just an example, it's if you are habitually self-critical, that influences the thoughts, the emotions that arise with the thinking. The thinking, if you like, spreads out under the influence of these underlying tendencies, as well as memories. So, that happened previously. I recognize this. And what's happening here with it's kind of a mess. We've all an experience of this. It's like the mind fabricates this world of maybe catastrophizing, oh no, my train is late, I'm going to miss the meeting, I'm going to get the sack, I'm going to have to live homeless, Also, we come up with assumptions about how people are. Maybe we have prejudices against certain people or types of people. Through this kind of obsessive thinking around our experience. In Madhupindika Sutta, the Buddha says, obsessions of passion, the obsessions of resistance, the obsessions of views, the obsessions of uncertainty, the obsessions of conceit, the obsessions of passion for becoming, and the obsessions of ignorance. These all get mixed. These all come out of this papancha, this spreading out of our thinking. And it's the crucial thing is it's not rooted in our direct experience. We've gone off on one, is a way of putting it. We're lost in a world of our own making. I'm sure, again, we've all experienced this. I sometimes remember a confrontational scenario and I'm thinking, oh, well, why didn't I say that? And then they would have said the other. And then I would have, and I'm actually feeling emotion around these fictional sayings and utterances, and it's all construct. It's never actually happened. It's all only happening in my head. And perhaps the most troublesome outcome of this mess is a construct which we know as a sense of self, a false sense of ourself, a sense of a stable self, which actually is based on a constant identification with our stream of experience. 1 minute we're focusing on our thoughts, the next it's our emotions, the next it's on our views, our likes and our dislikes. And so we're identifying with things, constantly shifting. Just observe your own experience and see how this works in your own experience. And we form a sense of a stable self. it's kind of an interesting process, really, based on this constant identification with different aspects of our experience. In order to try and give ourselves a sense of security, grasp onto a sense of security in the face of what's obvious, what is obvious, of course, in a sense, are the seals, the other seals that on the previous weeks we've been looking at. So the first seal of impermanence, that was Ratnadeva was exploring impermanence, that everything is in flux. We will lose everything that is dear to us. At some point, we're going to lose it all, even our own life. And we need a sense of security in the face of this, and also in the face of the third seal, which was discussed by Aryavachan a month ago, on non-self. The fact that at the very core of our being is a groundlessness. So we're grasping for security in the face of these obvious, once you start looking at your experience, these obvious facts described as the seals. So this contrived construct, this contrived self, this stable, supposedly stable, separate self, is alienated from the way things really are. And it's destructive. The separation promotes self-concern in competition with other selves. We develop a sense of self and other as a result. And this, if you like, is what I would describe as the foundational polarization. It sets up an opposition. It creates an us-them attitude. My needs, wants, opinions against the needs and wants and opinions of others. So that yields competition rather than cooperation, collaboration, and it motivates self-orientated behavior. And it leads to conflict. So in the Madhupindika Sutta, the Buddha says, it leads to the taking up of rods and bladed weapons, of arguments, quarrels, disputes, accusations, divisive tale-bearing, and false speech. A more modern list might include the taking up of nail bombs, incendiary devices, machine guns, landmines, suicide vests, barrel bombs. So this sense of self and other that's at the foundation of this conflict is, again, it's alienated from the way things really are, which is actually that we are profoundly connected. And it distorts the interpretation, our interpretation of experience. We see the other as a source of happiness and security, or of unhappiness and insecurity. And this leads to the second seal. Karanagita, I think, led the session on that, which is unsatisfactoriness, dukkha. So how this happens is that we lock onto the other. So the other is the cause of my unhappiness or happiness. And we lock onto this identified cause. So the other is the cause of my pleasure or my pain, and my emotions that arise from the pleasure, the experience of pleasure and pain. So, for example, the cause of pleasure, we want to appropriate that cause of pleasure. We want to appropriate the latest mobile phone, maybe. We want to consume that cause of pleasure, a bag of Kettle crisps, for example. Or we want to attach ourselves to that supposed cause of pleasure, maybe an attractive person. We also lock onto the other when the other is a cause of pain. So, I don't know, we step on some dog poo. Now, our instinctive reaction might be to resist this experience, push it away, and blame, that doggerone over there, their dog has done that. Done that do. So what happens out of this distortion of our interpretation of what's going on, of the way things really are, is craving and aversion. I want of that which gives me pleasure. I want to push away that which causes me pain. Now, this is a spreading out into further unskillful mental states like anger and lust, which give rise to unskillful intentions, and which give rise to unskillful actions, words, deeds that lead to conflict. This, according to the second seal of dukkha and the second noble truth, is the source of suffering. Craving and aversion are the source of suffering. And the fundamental reason, the fundamental source of the suffering, fundamental source of conflict, if you like, is this combination of spreading out, proliferation, papancha, giving rise to the stable, a false sense of a stable, separate self, and the sense of self and other coming into competition with each other. The Buddha doesn't leave it there. So that's one sutta. He outlines this mechanism, if you like, whereby inner conflict results in papancha, the sense of self, false sense of self, and conflict. He offers a solution. He offers us a way of pulling up the roots of conflict. How do we stop this chain of events unfolding? The antidote, according to the Buddha, is simple. Well, and I can say it in one word, but it's obviously not simple, or else we'd all be doing it. We'd all be following it. The word in Pali is sati. That's often translated as mindfulness. And more specifically, the Buddha teaches the four foundations of mindfulness. This is in another sutta called the Satipatthana Sutta. And so there are four foundations of mindfulness. Let's look at those four foundations of mindfulness as the antidote to conflict. The first is mindfulness of body. This is when we catch ourselves thinking, and rather than moving on to proliferation, we're aware of what's going on, and we see the proliferation, this mess, if you like, all the stories coming on, all the pain associated with that, and we return to our sense experience. Simple as that. We get real. We ground ourselves in our sense experience, in our bodies. We do this when we meditate. Our sense experience is only ever in the here and the now. For example, in the sensations just now of my breath around my nostrils. Whereas that spreading out, that papancha, that proliferation of thought is very much about being stuck in the past, regrets, in the future, anxieties. So that thousandfold returning to the sensations of the breath in your meditation is the working ground of internal peacemaking. It tackles papancha, that spreading out head on by coming back, short-circuiting those subsequent chains. And that's what they are chains for us. So that's the mindfulness of breathing. The second mindfulness, the second of the four foundations of mindfulness, is mindfulness of feeling tone. So I talked about feeling tone there as the third chain, the third link in the chain. Mindfulness of feeling tone. That's again the experience we have with anything that happens to us, any sense experience, any thought, any emotion, that quality of pleasantness, unpleasantness, or neutrality. And it happens just instantaneously. And as I say, it's kind of a measure, it's a way our organism has of evaluating our environment and what happens to us in terms of our well-being. So you put your hand on the fire, ow, it's damaging. So it's unpleasant, it's painful. The Vedana is the painfulness of that, sticking your hand in the fire, getting burned. So what is mindfulness of feeling tone? It's bringing awareness to what we call we describe as bringing awareness to the gap, mind the gap. The gap is between the feeling tone and, say, a possible knee-jerk response to the feeling tone. Pushing away the unpleasant, grasping onto the pleasant. I want more of the pleasant. I don't want that, the unpleasant. So awareness in the gap means immediately acknowledging the Vedana, the feeling tone. Ouch, that's painful. I recognize this. It's painful. It's very simple, this. Or, I like that. That's pleasurable. I'm experiencing pleasure. Now, this labeling, this immediate acknowledging introduces some distance. There is pleasure, there is pain, as opposed to identifying, getting totally caught up and immersed in the pleasure and the pain. It broadens our perspective, and it allows us to see that actually there are other feeling tones available to me. So, I'm out going for a walk, step on dog poo. Unpleasant feeling tone. But if I look up, there are the trees in their majesty, in their autumn colours. How wonderful that. That stepping in dog poo is not the end of the world. So it kind of broadens our perspective, this bringing awareness to the gap. It establishes a new relationship to feeling tone. We change our relationship to it. It's like the feeling tone is held in a bigger container. And that spaciousness facilitates a creative response rather than a habitual reactive response. The habitual is obviously holding on to the pleasant, rejecting the unpleasant. So the creative response to Vedana, pleasant or unpleasant, is turning towards the unpleasant without resistance, without anger, without blame. Tara Brach writes beautifully about turning towards unpleasant Vedana, feeling tone. She describes in her book Radical Acceptance. She talks about meeting every situation with awareness and kindness, with compassion for one's own suffering. Ouch, that really is painful. Bringing compassion to that experience in real time. It's an opportunity to transcend that papancha-induced narrow self, fixed, stable, separate. It's so this opportunity for self-transcendence is an antidote to the selfing, the generation of this narrow sense of self that comes from proliferation papancha. So maybe just to flesh out what I mean, an opportunity for self-transcendence, what can that mean? Well, if we have knowledge of our own suffering, that in a sense gives us a clue about how others suffer. It can help us to develop a sense of solidarity with our fellow human beings. So I lost my mum 10 years ago, and that feeling of grief, I think, has allowed me to just have an understanding and a greater solidarity when other people I meet have an experience of loss, particularly beloved ones. So knowledge of our suffering is actually connecting. It breaks down the sense of separation. It helps us to see the common experience. So that's turning towards unpleasant feeling tone, but also turning towards the pleasant feeling tone. Appreciating what we have, the good things, having gratitude, and holding back from craving. So holding back from I want more, whatever it is, praise, approval, sunshine on a cloudy day. Not grasping. That's the creative possibility that is opened up when we bring awareness to feeling tone. So we've looked at 2 of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. We've mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feeling tone. The third is mindfulness of thoughts and emotions. This is where it gets really intense and interesting. So mindfulness of thoughts and emotions. It's about bringing awareness to our thoughts and emotions, acknowledging them, observing them as though they're baggage on a carousel at the airport. We look at them with curiosity and interest, and we look at them rather than from them. So we're less identified with the thoughts. There is some distance introduced, again, the spaciousness, but we're still in touch with them. It's like rather than being there, they're there. I can still see, observe. But there is less investment in I, me, and mine. There are thoughts. There are emotions. These events are happening. There is less selfing. Life is less fraught. So I'm talking about this new relationship with our thoughts and emotions. And a hallmark of this new relationship is kindness. It's crucial, the kindness. So again, we're not distancing ourselves from our experience, from our thoughts and emotions. We're not cultivating a kind of clinical awareness, detached. It's warm-hearted, and it's free of judgment. It's allowing. We can, for example, in meditation, we can think, well, thoughts and emotions, they're natural. That's what we do as human beings. We think and emote. So we don't suppress. We don't resist. We acknowledge. We turn towards. We let go. Hello, thought. Thank you, thought. Not just now, thought. And this kindness, which is the hallmark of this new relationship with thoughts and emotions, it is the basis of kindness towards others, towards solidarity with others, towards a spirit of cooperation, collaboration rather than competition. The last of the four foundations of mindfulness is mindfulness of dharmas. So that's teachings, that's the Buddhist teachings. So this is kind of a reflective exercise. This is how we reflect on the key Dharma teachings, like the three seals, the first three seals, the marks of existence, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and insubstantiality. And it's about reflecting on them in order that our understanding, our knowledge of them stops being simply intellectual, really sinks into our guts and becomes intuitive. That's when wisdom begins. We reflect on our own experience and our own actions in the light of the teachings, the precepts. Is this action skillful or unskillful? So we have these four satipatthanas as the antidote to what's illustrated there in red: proliferation, selfing, and conflict. We cultivate this powerful mindfulness from the four satipatthanas, foundations of mindfulness. We cultivate a powerful mindfulness with regard to our physical sensations, our body, our feeling tone. We are conscious moment by moment of these, our thoughts and emotions. And we pervade this awareness with an awareness of the Dharma. And an awareness, we pervade this awareness with kindness. This is conscious living. This is knowing how you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and whether what you're doing is in line with your values and purpose. And so this mindfulness is the antidote to the proliferation, the identification, the selfing, the polarization, the competition, the conflict, both inner and outer. This powerful mindfulness is the basis of inner peace. And as we saw earlier, inner peace and outer peace, peace in the world, co-arise. So powerful mindfulness is the foundation for peace in the world. In the Madhupindika Sutta, it says, that is powerful mindfulness. That is the end of taking up rods and bladed weapons, of arguments, quarrels, disputes, accusations, divisive tale-bearing, and false speech. So peace in the world starts in the mind and heart of every one of us, and every sentient being. Your grounding in direct experience matters. Your relationship with your feeling tone, your thoughts, your emotions matters. Here, just now, on the tube home or in your car, and in your relationships, we all have this role of peacemaking, this potential. We can all be warriors of peace. May you be blessed in your task of peacemaking.
Thank you so much.